served me was to serve and to get out of my own uh, problems and find out what's really going on over there. And it's like the spirit of coaching, the sacred nature of the light was what I would call it. And Kush would come in and through. And I would always have the question, the energy, or if it was needed, an insight that I could share as long as I didn't force it. And I think a lot of coaches are trying to force an outcome with their clients, are trying to get somewhere with their clients. And I believe personally, and I've written about this, we cannot be enrolling if we're trying to impress.
Okay, hello coaches. Hello, whether you're watching on Facebook, on LinkedIn, YouTube, or even on Mighty Networks. I'm joined today by one of our faculty members for the upcoming AJC Coaching Career School cohort number 4, 2025-2026. And I'm really pleased to have with us Stephen McGhee. Stephen is joining the AJC faculty for the first time. And I won't go into his formal bio, but I do suggest you check it out. He's an incredible coach and worked with some incredible leaders, very, very successful guy. But the reason I asked Stephen to be on the faculty wasn't because of any of that, and that's really impressive. But the reason I asked Stephen to be on the faculty was Stephen and I were both speaking at an event in January this year. And Stephen went on just before I did, and he spoke very much from his heart. And he spoke about a situation that he's been involved in. His home was destroyed in the Pacific Palisades fire in LA. And this man just stood at the front of the room, really in the midst of what a lot of people would call a personal tragedy, but spoke so eloquently, so vulnerably, and so heartfelt. It really impacted everyone in the room, including myself. And even though I've known of him for a very long time. I first heard of him as one of the 3 Steves in the coaching world, Steve Hardison, Steve Chandler, and Stephen McGhee. So he'd come, very highly, recommended and spoken of, and has a wonderful reputation. But it was only a few months ago when we actually got to meet for the first time in person, and there was just a connection. And it was a similar thing when I reached out to ask him to be part of the school. There was all the stuff and logistics, but I think we both really connected and are on the same page. So I'm really excited. He said, yes, Stephen, and great to have you with us.
And Kush, it's beautiful to be here with you. Congratulations on this being the 4th cohort of probably many more to come, given your service consciousness and the awareness that you have about this industry. I'm grateful to be here.
It's so good to have you. I know I say we keep these to 20 minutes, and I'm going to really try and honor that and keep these short and sharp. But this, I know we could talk for a long time. I'm very excited about your 2-hour masterclass for the school. And for those people who have no idea who Stephen McGhee is, maybe they've been living under a rock somewhere, could you just give us a kind of a short bio and tell us a little bit about your journey as a coach? And, I'm so grateful that you are willing to share, your decades of experience with us.
Well, decades is right. I'm going on north of 3 decades, so 30 plus years of being in the professional leadership space. I came up in business through investment banking, where I was on the succession plan for senior leadership at Nations Bank. And the long story short about that, Ankush, is that I didn't love the industry. It wasn't healthy for me or functional for me to stay in there as a long-term business career. But because I was on the succession plan, I got a boatload of communication and leadership training, which I fell in love with. I fell in love with the idea that a person, when applying the principles and protocols of, let's call it leadership, can actually change the trajectory and the outcome of a business, of a culture, of an individual experience. So I fell in love with leadership. And when I left the banking industry, I actually didn't start as a coach. I came out speaking on leadership as a keynote speaker throughout the world with a company called Enlightened Leadership International. So we spoke at companies like Microsoft and other tech companies, other industrial organizations and companies. And I really got the feel for how culture and leadership can be shifted through facilitation. The coaching thing started when I was doing a public seminar on the East Coast. And there was a person sitting at a round table in the public seminar. The subject was enlightened leadership. And I thought the person was disgruntled all day long, like their body language, Ankush, was like this, and they seemed tight in the face and angry. And I just kept doing my thing. I just kept being myself. And about 4 p.m. that day, when the public seminar ended, this person walked up to me and handed me a business card and said, "I want you to coach me." That's when my coaching career took off. But the funny thing about it was, I looked at him and I said, "I don't know what a coach would do," because that's 30 years ago, right? That's before the space of coaching has taken off the way that it has today, and for good reason, because lots of people need it. And the other thing I'll say before I pivot back to you, Ankush, is that while I've been doing this over 30 years, I would say the thing I love most about what I do is that each and every day is the first day. Each and every time I wake up after 30 years of coaching people, I don't take it for granted. I don't use that 30 plus years to somehow give myself credibility, because in coaching, the credibility is in the now. It's in the presencing of now. It's in the presencing of who we're being, who I'm being, who you're being, who I'm listening for, what I'm listening for. And that requires a lot of humility, but it also requires it's a ton of service, which you and I have talked about.
That's so beautiful, Stephen. Thank you for sharing that. There's so much richness and gold in that. And I've said for a long time that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And I'm so grateful for you, both in this conversation and in what you're going to give to the school, because all of us, all of the people in the school really get to learn from someone like yourself who has been doing this for probably a lot longer than everyone who's in the school. And to hear that this isn't about bravado is really powerful. And I'm curious, what would you say to a coach who's maybe earlier on in their journey would love to create the success you've created and thinks, well, would Stephen really get it? Because I mean, surely it's easy for him. He's like established now. I'd love to hear how you would speak to them.
Well, I mean, first, with just a dose of reality. Like I heard it once said that coaching and speaking is a really hard way to make an easy living. So, but I don't mind that. I mean, I do think that some people come into the coaching space because they've heard about great big fees and it's a lifestyle business, and there's a lot of noise on social media about, $50,000, $100,000 fees and all of that. And that's totally possible. So I speak to you and your listeners from a place of possibility. Like I believe in the portal of possibility, which you and I are co-creating right now. And that's what every coaching conversation is. But I also want to bring a dose of reality, which is that it took me years of trying to figure out what an enrollment conversation really was and what the nuance in leadership and enrollment really is, what service really is. I've tried everything, in those early days, and coaching wasn't a thing like it is now. So I didn't have the goodness of a school like yours to support me in the efficiency or the exponential growth of growing my coaching practice. So I was part of the school of hard knocks. Like I just, did everything wrong. And then I would do something well, and I would serve someone from a place of watching who they were being transformed, or watching who they were being transformed toward a result, like an increase in margins on their business, uh, or healing a relationship that they needed to grow their business. So there were lots of examples for me along the way where I'd go, wow, this is true leadership in coaching. This is what coaching can really do as a tangible result. So that's one of the hardest things for new coaches, is it's hard to see, to believe that a conversation can translate to a true result on the bottom line or in the life of a person. It's just incredible what conversations can do. So I would start with that, Ankush. Does that make any sense?
We could talk for 2 hours about just that. I think
Just
that's
that,
great.
right?
The power of conversations, and it seems so crazy in a way when people say, "Well, what do you do?" And it's like, well, you could say we just talk to people and we get paid for that, and that is a vast oversimplification, and in some ways it's true. But there's nuance and depth, and I love how you talk so much about really coming from service, because that's the key. It's not about necessarily what we do, but so much about where we come from. And this school really it has evolved over the years to be something that not only is helping coaches, it's not just another school to help coaches grow their practices, and they will get that, but it really is about trying to be a beacon in this profession to raise the tide for everyone, because I believe that coaching can at its best be a sacred act, and that we have the ability as in this profession as coaches to really raise the consciousness of the planet. And I'm curious, what does that mean to you? Because I know we've spoken about that before.
Yeah, well, I love the language that you're using. You know, sacred is a word that carries a high vibration for me. And so I do come to every coaching conversation. I come to this conversation with a sacred purpose. And to me, that word can only be honored if I'm really giving it the justice that it deserves, and that starts with me. So if I'm not coming into a conversation having my inner landscape prepared for the sacred nature of a coaching conversation, and that would be the only preparation I would do. Like, I don't do frameworks in coaching. I don't have a plan in coaching. I meet people with their own presence and where they're coming from, what their problem is of the day, what their challenges of the day. But I want to hold that in a loving, sacred portal of possibility where truly great miracles can happen. But I have to do my part as a coach to prepare for that, to show up for that. And there have been days, I mean, I've been doing this a long time where, and you mentioned, you know, what I went through as a personal tragedy. Our entire home got burned down. We had 20 minutes to take a few things from our home while we watched it burn to the ground. And so over the last number of months, you know, I've been feeling a lot of things, including grief, including vulnerability, including how's this going to impact my business? Because we've been living in hotels. We're living in a leased place right now up in Santa Barbara. And the reason I share this with you and the listeners today is because we can bring sacred to a coaching conversation no matter what's going on in our lives. And sometimes when the shit hits the fan, we can bring the learning from that hardship, from that personal tragedy, as a vulnerability to support other people. So I've never tried to have it, well, I have in the past tried to have it all together, but I've learned over the years that carrying in some egotistical identity or expert identity as a coach, like I'm going to fix you in some way as a client, I don't have any of that anymore. I have more vulnerability and more gratitude, which opens the space for the sacred. Can you hear that, Ankush? Does that make sense?
It's so beautiful. I'm so resonating with what you're speaking here, and I really love that you opened with that, because I think this is kind of the antidote to so much of what's being shared for coaches out now, which is you've got to be an expert. You've got to have some kind of framework or something that has you stand out, that people look up to you. And I think underneath that there is almost an implicit you've got to be perfect. And what I really love about what you're sharing, and really from people I admire in this profession, is they don't pretend to be perfect. We don't have to be. And it's not about perfection, because that's true for our clients too. Whether they're leaders, or whatever they do, it isn't about perfection. And so I think what you're really pointing to is modeling that kind of met both things, that on one hand, life can be messy and we can feel what we feel. And by the way, me too. Um, and on the other hand, still use that as a teaching point if needed, and or whatever's going on, come back to that sacredness. And I'm reminded of, I think someone asked Steve Hardison, what do you do when your head's all over the place or things are messed up? And he said, I serve. And I'm reminded of that as you're speaking. And it's also my experience that sometimes the greatest thing I can do for myself is not think about myself when everything's going on, and instead serve, love, focus on what's going on with someone else. I'm often coaching myself in that too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful reminder. And I just invite everyone to breathe in what you just said, like really get it into your bones, get it into your cells, because this is not a profession where self-absorption serves. And so I'm not interested in being that interesting. I'm more interested in being interested in what's going on over there. And to your point, that can take me out of anything that I might have going on a day, even if it's fatigue. Like in the days I was doing a lot of traveling, I was in 3 cities in 3 days, and I was in front of a lot of people, which required a lot of physical, output, planes, trains, automobiles, all that kind of stuff, restaurant food. But what really served me was to serve and to get out of my own uh, problems and find out what's really going on over there. And it's like the spirit of coaching, the sacred nature of the light was what I would call it. And Kush would come in and through. And I would always have the question, the energy, or if it was needed, an insight that I could share as long as I didn't force it. And I think a lot of coaches are trying to force an outcome with their clients, are trying to get somewhere with their clients. And I believe personally, and I've written about this, we cannot be enrolling if we're trying to impress. We cannot move the meter on the inner level of inspiration if I'm busy trying to get you or somebody else to like me. We got to drop it all as coaches. And it's just there's so much liberation in that. So I practice that every day. I'm still practicing it.
I knew this before this conversation, and this has really kind of nailed it for me. That for me, if someone brought their best listening, the entire cost of my coaching school, you would get the ROI of that just from the 2 hour masterclass you're going to do.
Yeah.
I really feel that. I think you've given so much already in this conversation, but is there anything else you want to share that for people who are thinking, oh, okay, I might want to join the school? What are they going to get from the masterclass that you're going to deliver for 2 hours?
Well, I mean, you touched on one of many things I want to bring to the 2 hours, which is a deeper contextual look at listening. So most coaches think listening is a content piece. Like, I heard what you say, which is a good tool. It started with Carl Rogers and Rogerian theory. Like, I hear what you're saying. What I hear you saying is that's valuable because it's content oriented and it has somebody feel like they've been listened to. But listening, and one thing I'll bring to my time with your school, would be that listening is contextual. So what does that mean? It means that I'm creating through how I listen. So if I have a moment of judgment and I move out of the sacred nature of the conversation and I'm judging something someone said, they might not notice on the outside, but they're going to feel it on the inside. And so the contextual nature of listening says we create as coaches through how we listen. And that's super nuanced. And I would spend a good amount of time in the master class really refining and defining that. Because once a coach masters listening and enrollment, this profession takes on an entirely new and powerful trajectory, not only toward results, towards the goal line for our clients, but also for the soul line evolution of the spirit of that person that's sitting in front of us, whether it's a CEO or an at-home, a man that's at home taking care of kids, or a woman that's building a business as an entrepreneur. These are all areas where enrollment and inspiration is super important on the inner level. So we got to work on that inner level through listening, is what I'm saying. How do you hear that? Is that like we're listening? You're a powerful listener. How do you hear that, Ankush, in terms of your school?
Well, I'm hearing it for me because I'm always learning more about listening, and what you didn't say, I'd love to make more explicit, is what we're all going to learn in Stephen's masterclass is a superpower that if you bring into your enrollment conversations as well as your coaching conversations, will make us both more impactful and wealthier. So I don't want to skip over that. So people going, oh, I've done a listening course. No. What Stephen's sharing here is something that is a quality, a skill, a way of being. It's all of that combined that will bring both of these things together because they're intertwined. It's the impact and then it's the income that they go hand in hand.
Yeah,
So
that's beautiful. I think a specific application of that, which might be helpful, is oftentimes in a coaching conversation, the first few minutes of the conversation give us as a coach a plentitude of information that we would need for an hour, 90-minute, or 2-hour session. But the key to it is to slow it down, to take that content in context and go like this with it. Because in there is some deep transformation, some deep insight, and that's where the meter really moves. So I'm glad you slowed down on the listening piece because that's really what it means. It means to take time and to go like this with it. There's a lot in there.
I think one of the most powerful things we can do, Stephen, as coaches, and I wouldn't have understood this a decade ago, maybe even 5 years ago, but I think one of the most powerful things we can do as coaches is to really listen.
Yeah.
Because in that, a skilled, highly skilled coach with powerful listening can hear things that the client doesn't even realize they've said and is not even in the words. And that value that's created out of that isn't just a made up make believe value. It can have real tangible results, like you said, in the goal line, in the real world of results and performance, and in the soul line, which is the inner world, and how people are felt. I don't want to end this. I'm really mindful that we said 20 minutes. We've gone over a little bit. But thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for giving us an experience of what your masterclass is going to be. If anyone's interested in talking about the school, joining the school, feel free to reach out to me. Let's have a conversation and see if it's a good fit. And I'm really excited, Stephen, to have you part of our program. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to be part of this, and I look forward to the master class and to meeting all of the students. I've seen a number of them that are already signing up to be a part of what you've created. So let's go.
Thank you, Stephen.